Hi there, welcome back to your favorite deep dive show on stories contemporary and consequential for India. This week, like I always do, pick two, one national and the other international. Tug of war between Hindi and Tamil has been one of the pillars of Dravidian politics in Tamil Nadu for decades. So it was not surprising that MK Stalin would pick another round of language war targeting the new education policy. But there's an interesting pattern of not so soft Tamil sub-nationalism that the DMK leader has been building of late. We take a deep dive. Also, Chinese business tycoon Jack Ma made a surprise reappearance in Beijing this week after having been banished from public space 5 years ago by the communist regime. Is this Xi Jinping pulling out a rabbit out of his hat for the coming AI-dominated trade war with Trump's America? We take a look. Let's get going.
இந்த முறை என்னுடைய பிறந்தநாள் வேண்டுகோளாக என் உயிரோடு கலந்திருக்கும் தலைவர் கலைஞரின் அன்பு உடன்பிறப்புகளுக்கு ஒரு கோரிக்கையை முன்வைக்கிறேன். இன்னைக்கு தமிழ்நாடு தன்னுடைய உயிர் பிரச்சனையான மொழிப்போரையும் தன்னுடைய உரிமை பிரச்சனையான தொகுதி மறுசீரமைப்பையும் எதிர்கொண்டிருக்கு. இதனுடைய உண்மையான நோக்கத்தை நீங்கள் மக்களிடம் கொண்டு சேர்க்க கேட்டுக்கிறேன். தொகுதி மறுசீரமைப்பு என்பது நம்ம மாநிலத்தோட சுயமரியாதை, சமூக நீதி, நம்ம சமூக நல திட்டங்களை பெரிதும் பாதிக்கும். இதை நீங்கள் மக்களிடம் கொண்டு செல்ல வேண்டும்.
Last week saw a strong pushback from Tamil Nadu against the three-language formula of the centre, with controlled aggression making it yet another DMK versus BJP and Chennai versus Delhi issue. Chief Minister MK Stalin sought to stir the pot by claiming that Hindi had destroyed 25 North Indian languages in the last century. And his deputy son, Udayanidhi, followed a predictable script, ready to turn it into a language war.
இந்தியை ஏத்துக்கிட்ட பல மாநிலங்கள் இன்றைக்கு தங்களுடைய தாய்மொழியை இழந்து நிற்கிறதை நாம பார்த்துக்கிட்டு இருக்கிறோம். உதாரணத்திற்கு பீகார் மாநிலத்திற்கு பிகாரி, ஹரியானாவுடைய தாய்மொழி ஹரியான்வி, உத்தரப்பிரதேசத்துடைய தாய்மொழி போஜ்புரி. இந்த மொழிகள் எல்லாம் இன்னைக்கு கிட்டத்தட்ட அழிஞ்சு போயிருக்கு. இதற்கு காரணம் அங்கெல்லாம் ஹிந்தி நுழைந்ததுதான்.
Parallel developments happened in other states on the language front. Belagavi became a hotspot yet again between Karnataka and Maharashtra. Uttar Pradesh Assembly saw a sparring between Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath and the Samajwadi Party over availability of Urdu or absence of it in translations of House proceedings. Punjab government objected to the CBSE toying with the idea of removing Punjabi as an option for Class 10 exams. This is not the first time that we in India are going to face a war over languages, if at all it happens. Just that, like earlier, this time too, the epicenter of the convergence happens to be in Tamil Nadu. It goes back decades to even before independence. Mahatma Gandhi saw in Hindi, albeit not the Sanskritized version that the government of India pushes, the lingua franca that could unite the masses during the freedom struggle. He was not a native Hindi speaker. He was a Gujarati. But he understood the practicality of sheer numbers speaking Hindi or Hindustani in pushing for it. Cut to 1938, when the presidency government of C. Rajagopalachari, inspired by the Mahatma, made Hindi learning compulsory in schools across Madras. Spontaneous protests broke out by Tamils, fanned by E.V. Ramaswamy Nayakar Perayar. The movement consolidated over decades, and by the time of the Official Languages Act in 1960s, turned into a full-blown resistance with use of violence on some occasions. While there were Tamils from Rajaji to Ambujam Ammal batting for Hindi inspired by the Mahatma, the Tamil resistance was real. The DMK cut its teeth into politics on the back of these anti-Hindi protests, with its cadres even going to the extent of burning copies of the Constitution of India to register protest. The Modi government has clarified, and the new education policy, of which the three-language formula is part of, is unambiguously clear that students have to learn three languages, which should mandatorily include the mother tongue and one more of the official Indian languages, only preferably Hindi, but it is not imposed. Students in Kerala, for example, are absolutely free to pick up Tamil or Telugu as their second language apart from Malayalam, which is their mother tongue, plus English or French or Swahili if they are so interested.
NEP is recommending imposition of Hindi in Tamil Nadu. This misinformation, this falsehood should not be spread from the responsible persons. Other way, Prime Minister Modi's government is committed, as we promised, towards the glorification of language and heritage of Tamil Nadu. Kashi Tamil Sangamam and Saurashtra Tamil Sangamam is one of these are the two important instruments of recent times to create a global recognition how it is linked, Tamil culture, Tamil language, how it is linked to the pan-Indian prospect.
Apart from that, Prime Minister Modi has spoken with pride of Tamil's ancient legacy, of it being the most ancient language of the world at least half a dozen times, including at the United Nations. I would leave aside for a while the RSS-inspired Kashi Tamil Sangamam project in its fourth year now.
अध्यक्ष महोदय, आज से 3000 वर्ष पूर्व भारत के महान कवि कणियन पुंगुन ड्रनार, उन्होंने विश्व की प्राचीनतम भाषा तमिल में कहा था, यादम उरे यावरुम केडीर, यानी हम सभी स्थानों के लिए अपनेपन का भाव रखते हैं और सभी लोग हमारे अपने हैं.
But this is not just about the language war. There is a larger plan to what the Stalins have been doing past month. Even before the language war row subsided, we heard them pick up the issue of delimitation, another hot-button political subject south of the Vindhyas. Stalin has called for an all-party meet on March 5 in Chennai, claiming that with the new delimitation commission set to take up the reorganization of Lok Sabha seats, Tamil Nadu alone could lose as many as 8, thus adversely affecting the state's political clout at the center. He raised the delimitation issue in October last year also, asking Tamils to raise 16 children if need be to counter the possible adverse fallout of delimitation. He was chiming in with Andhra Chief Minister N. Chandrababu Naidu, who is an NDA ally. The argument is that with the southern states having done better on human development indices like education and birth control, the population density and absolute numbers have come down. Since the Lok Sabha seats get demarcated population-wise, the laggard northern states with higher populations, higher birth rates, get rewarded politically for their failures. The argument is not without some merit. And that's why the Union Home Minister Amit Shah sought to allay those fears on a visit to the state this week. But then those or any assurances do not count, for the agenda is much larger. Just look at two developments involving Stalin last month. On January 23, in a grandstanding post, Stalin announced to the world that Iron Age began in Tamil Nadu. What was written in our ancient literature is now becoming scientifically proven history, thanks to the meticulous efforts of our Dravidian model government. The history of the Indian subcontinent can no longer overlook Tamil Nadu. In fact, it must begin here, he said.
சர் ஜான் மார்ஷல் அதை அறிவிச்சார். இது இந்திய துணைக்கண்ட வரலாற்றில் ஒரு திருப்பு முனையை உண்டாக்கி நம்ம கடந்த காலத்தை பத்தின புரிதலை மாத்தி அமைச்சது. ஆரியமும் சமஸ்கிருதமும் தான் இந்தியாவின் மூலம்னு கற்பனைய வரலாறா அதுக்கு முடனும் பலரும் சொல்லிக்கிட்டு வந்தாங்க. அதை மாத்தினது ஜான் மார்ஷல் அவருடைய ஆய்வுகள் தான். சிந்துவெளி நாகரிகம் ஆரியத்திற்கு முற்பட்டது, அங்கே பேசப்பட்டது திராவிட மொழியா இருக்கலாம்னு அவர் நூற்றாண்டுகளுக்கு முன்ன சொன்ன குரல் இன்னைக்கு வலுப்பெற்று இருக்கு.
Before I read the subtext for you, let me recall another big announcement made by Stalin's government. On January 5, the Tamil Nadu Chief Minister announced a $1 million or rupees 8 crores prize for anyone deciphering the Indus script. Yes, the script of the Indus Valley civilization that flourished up north in the Indus Plains. The monosyllabic pictorial script has been a riddle wrapped in an enigma for over a century since its discovery. But scientists have found some similarities between the characters of the Indus script with some Tamil symbols. For example, the predominant use of the bull in the Indus tablets is rampant across Tamil culture. The Aryan civilization, on the other hand, has horse as its predominant cultural theme. The entire edifice of Dravidian politics is built on this Dravid versus Aryan divide, with the latter seen as invaders, contrary to the Hindutva or RSS narrative that Aryans were the true inhabitants of this land of Bharat. That's why Aryavrat. Now you get it. If Stalin gets to prove for $1 million the Tamil or Dravid connections to the Indus civilization, and hence, as a corollary, that it's the Dravids who are natives of this land, and that the Aryans were invaders from some foreign land up north who came riding on a horse and pushed the Dravids south of the Vindhyas, he gets to rewrite history. Studies show that symbols of bulls, considered a representation of Dravidian culture, are prevalent in Indus Valley artifacts, while horse depictions are conspicuously absent. Furthermore, symbols and inscriptions found at sites in Tamil Nadu, such as Sivakai, Adichanallur, Mailadumamparai, and others, bear a 60% resemblance to those of the Indus Valley, with pottery inscriptions showing a 90% similarity, Stalin explained while announcing the award. Just a day later, on January 6, Stalin government had a repeat run-in with the governor, R.N. Ravi, on the issue of playing national anthem at the start of the assembly session. This was the third year in a row that Governor Ravi walked out of the assembly without completing the customary address to the House on grounds that the state anthem, Tamilathai Vazathu, was played before national anthem. While this might have been a tradition in Tamil Nadu Assembly that the national anthem is played at the end of the program and the state anthem at the start, by digging in his heels, Stalin is making a larger point. Howsoever softly, but very clearly, an attempt is being made to push contours of Tamil nationalism. In 2022, the Tamil Nadu Assembly passed a resolution seeking centers not to supply humanitarian aid to Sri Lanka, mainly to Tamils in the northern parts of the southern neighbor. When the challenge to the Citizenship Amendment Act reached the Supreme Court, the DMK made exclusion of Sri Lankan Tamils from the ambit of Indian citizenship as one of the many grounds of its opposition to the law. Make no mistake, there is no suggestion of separatism, only a soft sub-nationalism that buttresses DMK's Dravid politics. Also remember, Tamil Nadu is headed for assembly elections next year. In the 2026 elections, Stalin sees his opportunity to further consolidate the DMK rule, as he possibly passes on the baton to his son, Udayanidhi. The BJP has been on a bit of a back foot, except for one salvo that in 2015 Stalin wanted Urdu to be made compulsory by law for the benefit of Muslims in the state, thus exposing his hypocrisy and appeasement politics. The larger BJP ecosystem has struggled to frame an aggressive response. Quittings like that of actor Ranjana Nachiyar have put some constraints on its political push, and some within the party believe it might lose some of the electoral gains it made during last year's general elections. Interesting times ahead in Tamil Nadu. Coming back to the language issue before I close, even today, if you look at the numbers of those who speak Hindi and those who speak other languages, Hindi connects more people and regions in the country. The debate needs to be nuanced. It's not language supremacy issue on whether Hindi is better language than Tamil for poetry or science or commerce, or vice versa. It's just about convenience of the masses to communicate through the language divide. Remember, The three-language formula owes its origins to early days of independence, when the sentiment that saw English as a language of slavery was still strong. Also, remember the European experiment. Language constitutes nationality there, despite the bond of Christianity. Let's not stoke those fires. Moving on for now. It does not happen often that an English teacher with no background in science or technology becomes a techpreneur and one of the richest private sector tycoons in a communist state. Jack Ma did all this and more. He has just survived a purge and come back to tell his tale. The billionaire founder of umbrella tech and commerce group Alibaba was banished in 2020 after he crossed a red line and criticized some of the Xi Jinping government's financial sector policies. The outreach was not appreciated, to put it politely. Within days, Ma disappeared from public view, even fueling speculation that he was perhaps thrown in some deep dungeon, never to return. The list of those who have crossed Xi or made mistakes in his eyes and lost their careers is long. Just one example of the scale of Xi's purges. Of the 205 Central Committee members of the Chinese Communist Party, all handpicked by Xi himself in 2022, 19 were either purged, thrown in jail, or excommunicated from public life. One even committed suicide. That's roughly 10% of those who were selected. We of course know the most famous examples. Foreign Minister Qin Gang, picked in March 2023, projected as a rising star, and gone by July in 4 months. Or Defense Minister Li Shangfu, picked along with Gang and banished by October on corruption charges. The list is long and cuts across public and private sectors alike. But coming back to Jack Ma. When Ma burst on the scene sometime in mid-2000s, he was seen as the embodiment of the unbridled ambition and uncogged energy of the Chinese private sector. Beginning with a website design company out of his drawing room, Ma built an online commerce company with multinational footprint in little over a decade. The young called him Daddy Ma. His rags to riches story, from being an English teacher to the big tech tycoon, became the inspiration for millions, not just in China, but around the world. In 2020, just ahead of that comment, which led to his downfall, Ma's net worth had peaked at over $61 billion. And then came that overreach in Shanghai's speech, where he called Chinese internet ecosystem a pawn shop and the Chinese financial sector throttled by Beijing's policies.
管是有问题的时候，或预判有问题的才去管，但是我们现在管的能力越来越强，监的能力明显不足。好的创新不怕监管，但是怕左。
The reaction was swift. $35 billion worth IPO of his financial sector company, the Ant Group, stood immediately cancelled. In a reminder of the Mao-era Cultural Revolution purge, Mao was gone from public view in a week. Xi showed it as part of his larger campaign against corruption, with many other business tycoons banishing. The Xi propaganda machine showed it as a reform that was needed to curb corruption, realign the private sector with socialist priorities of the communist state, much like fasting rejuvenates the body. The purge was meant to cleanse the economy of corruption cholesterol and lead to a second push to China's race to become the largest economy of the world, replacing the United States. What looked like stupidity, hubris, Jinping's megalomania, now seems to have had a plan. By bursting the real estate bubble, Jinping shifted China's resource allocation from what essentially is an unproductive, dead asset class to qualitative tech and innovation-driven future, which includes artificial intelligence and renewable energy. The thesis was that recession was necessary to renewal, a sort of autophagy for the economy, an act of creative destruction. All this sounded good in Communist Party's straitjacketed, genuflecting structures before the emperor that Xi has become. But the markets responded differently. Global corporate world saw destabilizing consequences of their actions. The Jinping purge created a long-term structural impact on Chinese economy, slowing it down for some years now. The real economic activity in China has stalled. China has sputtered and struggled on most parameters, and growth has plateaued since. There have been a couple of stimulus packages with little or limited impact, and one more is being talked about. While there have been no political costs given the dictatorship that China is, Xi even managing to further tighten his grip in the same period, China's challenge to the US economic hegemony now looks distant. At the event where Jack Ma appeared, the showstopper was not him. It was DeepSeek founder Liang Wenfeng. He is the toast in the present, giving China what's being billed as the Sputnik moment of AI for America. Other private sector czars, including from companies like the automaker BYD, were also present. But beyond the optics, what Xi said at the event was more important. Private sector needs to show more innovation, display its full talents and potential. If you read between the lines, it is back to full circle from 2020 when the pleasure of Xi stood withdrawn exactly for the same reasons, that the private sector was displaying true potential and consequent freedom and had to be restrained. Now the communist state would back it. So what changed? Why this accent on innovation and tech and private sector? China's struggles are manifold. Much of its success in the last 3 decades has been based on being a low-end manufacturing shop floor for the world. Innovation and tech remain the preserve of the West. Post-COVID, hardening of anti-China sentiment and the shift of supply chains have provided a challenge to that manufacturing sector. The shifting sands of trade have made the ground beneath Xi shake enough for him to recalibrate. The rehabilitation of private sector with Ma as its face should signify that shift. If the realignment of the economy for the next round of growth has to happen, then it cannot be without the private sector. When Xi began his crackdown 5 years ago, he might not have thought of the COVID caper and the Trump turn of events. The United States under Trump does not believe in niceties. There are already sanctions put in place in the first month of Trump presidency that are biting the Chinese semiconductor ecosystem. There are more coming. Ultimately, it is not about Jack Ma. His appearance at the symposium in Beijing after 5 years is a message of Xi's course correction. The Chinese president is beefing up his defenses against Trump's mercurial policy shifts. Nothing more. Thanks for watching.